Get your wrinkled hands off that jet, you relic. Corporal Ryan Tate, 24, hurled the words across the hangar with the sharpness of flung gravel. Reginald Harris, 83, did not flinch. The sponge in his hand hung still, dripping onto the polished metal like seconds slipping through time. Ryan's tone carried the easy cruelty of youth in uniform. He strutted closer, smirk thin as a blade. Certain authority was the same thing as respect. Reginald's eyes stayed on the Typhoon's wing, tracing a faint seam as if listening to it breathe. Michael Davies, 29, paused near the fuel rig. He had seen arrogance before, but something about the old man's stillness pulled the noise out of the air. Reginald's silence was not defeat. It was memory refusing to answer nonsense. Ryan barked again about trespassing and protocols. Reginald folded his rag and stepped back, each motion precise, deliberate, the way soldiers pack grief. He nodded once toward the aircraft, as though saying goodbye to something living. Michael watched the exchange, jaw tight. He had flown long enough to know respect was not a rank. The old man's posture, the careful handling of a sponge as if it were a scalpel, left him uneasy. When the guard turned away, Michael stepped closer to a technician nearby. "Who is he?" "That cleaner." The technician shrugged. "The old one. Always checks the jets before he scrubs them. Knows them better than the system does." Michael frowned. Knows them better than the system. He looked at the Typhoon's fuselage, where Reginald's fingers had brushed moments earlier. A small patch of dull paint, no bigger than a coin, caught the light differently. That evening, he checked the maintenance terminal in the crew room. The name appeared in the system. Reginald Harris, civilian cleaner. Limited access, a second record. Archived. Showed the same name under service personnel. Chief technician, RAF maintenance wing. 1982. The entry ended abruptly. Operational negligence. It said, black text without explanation. Michael leaned back, the hum of the bass filling the silence where reason should have been. He left the terminal open, the words burning behind his eyes. Negligence did not match the precision he had seen. Something about that note felt like a door slammed too quickly. The next day, Reginald worked alone at the edge of the tarmac, buckets lined like soldiers awaiting orders. Michael approached, boots soft against concrete, not wanting to startle him. He offered no greeting, only stood beside the jet, tracing the same line Reginald had touched. The old man broke the silence first. "You're looking at the wrong place," he said, voice even, quiet enough to cut through engines. Michael turned, startled. Reginald nodded toward a junction near the wing route. "There," he said. "That's where the trouble hides." His tone carried no pride, just certainty. Michael crouched, saw nothing unusual. No stain, no crack. Only a faint scuff invisible to the sensors. "How do you know?" he asked. Reginald's answer came like an afterthought. "Because I've seen it before." He wiped his hands, as if closing a book he never meant to reopen. Later that night, Michael searched deeper into the archives. He found the old report's 2 jets lost in the South Atlantic. 1982. A maintenance delay flagged under Chief Technician Reginald Harris. The report blamed procedural hesitation, no mention of why the delay existed in the first place. Michael read until the lights dimmed, until the absence of truth felt heavier than the facts. He found Reginald again the next morning by the fence near the supply shed. The man sat on an upturned crate, hands working a rag through a ring of oil-stained tools. Michael hesitated, then spoke. "You were there, weren't you? The Falklands." Reginald's hands paused, but did not shake. "I was where the noise was," he said, then went back to polishing the wrench. Michael wanted to ask more, but something in the man's expression stopped him. It wasn't secrecy, it was fatigue worn into silence. He understood that some stories survive by staying unspoken, across the base. The same Typhoon waited for another pre-flight check. Michael passed the sensor logs, all systems green, yet the coin-sized mark under the wing still gnawed at his thoughts. He caught himself walking to the hangar without reason, drawn by something other than duty. Reginald was already there, bent over the fuel line, slow and steady. The same movement again. That quiet scan only hands trained by loss could make. Michael crouched beside him, voice low. "The sensors cleared it," he said. Reginald's reply came sharp, but not loud. "Machines listen to numbers. Men listen to sound. The difference costs lives." Michael froze, the sentence striking with the calm of truth. For the first time, he saw not a cleaner, but a man who still worked as if the sky owed him one more chance to get it right. Ryan passed them by, throwing a glance thick with contempt. Michael ignored him. He was watching Reginald's fingertips, how they lingered on the seam like a heartbeat. A question formed, one he wasn't ready to ask. He would ask it soon enough, when the leak became more than theory. For now, he simply watched and wondered why a man so careful had been forgotten. Michael did not sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the old man's fingers press against that faint scar beneath the jet's wing. Machines listen to numbers. Men listen to sound. The words echoed, quiet but immovable. By dawn, the hangar hummed again. Reginald was nowhere in sight. His bucket sat by the door, dry and abandoned, like a relic of its owner's stubbornness. Michael felt the absence more than he expected. The maintenance team began their checks. Fuel lines, hydraulics, sensors, all green. No one mentioned the stain that had vanished under a new coat of inspection paint. Ryan Tate strutted in, clipboard in hand. He shot Michael a glance that carried the smugness of routine. "The system's fine, Lieutenant," he said. "No ghosts in the pipes today." Michael didn't answer. He signed the checklist. But the pen felt heavier than the paper. Every tick sounded like a decision he might regret. Later, in the crew lounge, the television played a segment on RAF veterans. Michael half listened until a black and white photograph appeared rows of ground crew beside a line of tornadoes. Third from the left stood Reginald Harris, younger, shoulders broad, eyes calm. The caption read, "Maintenance Team Bravo, Falklands Campaign, 1982. Michael froze. He took a photo of the screen before it changed. The old man's face burned into memory. He found Reginald that evening behind the storage hangar, sitting on a crate with a thermos beside him. The air between them felt familiar, like an unfinished sentence. "You were on Team Bravo," Michael said quietly. Reginald nodded once. "We all were. Back then. Some came home, some didn't." He wiped the rim of his thermos, gaze distant, voice even. Michael waited, when the silence stretched thin. Reginald spoke again. 2 tornadoes went up that night. The order came fast. The refuel faster. I saw the fracture, but the launch clock was louder than my voice. His words came slow, stripped of drama, polished by 40 years of regret. They called it hesitation. I called it listening. He looked at Michael, eyes steady, a man long past anger but never past memory. Michael swallowed hard. "You were right then, weren't you?" Reginald's mouth twitched, not into a smile but something close. Being right didn't stop the fire. Did it? A sudden shout came from the main hangar. A junior mechanic ran past, face tight. "Fuel pressure on Typhoon 3's auxiliary tank. Sir, sensor glitch or leak. Not sure which." Michael's pulse jumped. He turned to Reginald, who was already on his feet. "Where?" he asked, but he already knew, inside the hangar. Alarms blinked amber, the same Typhoon, the same wing. Technicians clustered, arguing over readouts and calibration. Reginald moved past them without a word. The guards hesitated, but no one stopped him. He crouched beneath the jet, eyes tracking every joint, every rivet, like reading a language only he still understood. "There," he said, tapping the junction he had pointed out days earlier. "Pressure's wrong, not leaking yet, but close." His voice held no triumph, only the calm of inevitability. Ryan appeared, red-faced. What the hell is he doing here? Michael stepped between them before the noise could drown sense again. Let him work, Michael said, tone low but final. Ryan hesitated, then lowered his clipboard like a man surrendering a weapon. No one breathed as Reginald pulled a tool from his kit, hands sure despite their tremor. He loosened a clamp, adjusted the line, and pressed the metal back into place with a sound that was almost a sigh. The fuel pressure dropped back to normal. The alarm light blinked twice, then died. For a moment, no one moved. Then Michael exhaled, the breath shaking in his chest. Reginald wiped his palms on his cloth and stood. That's what happens when you trust noise over sense, he said softly. Ryan turned away, face unreadable. Michael caught a flicker of something shame. Maybe, or the beginning of respect. Either way, it stayed. Later, after the hangar quieted, Reginald sat by the open bay door, looking out at the parked line of jets. Michael joined him, hands tucked in his flight jacket, uncertain whether to speak. They sat like that for a while, the silence less heavy now, almost companionable. Michael broke it first. Why keep coming back, after all that? Reginald considered the question, then answered as if to himself. Because no one else listens anymore. The machines do what they're told. The men do what they're told. Someone has to listen to the in-between. Michael nodded slowly. He understood. It was not about pride. It was about unfinished duty. Before leaving, he asked, quietly. If it happens again, it will, Reginald said, cutting him off. They always think the system is smarter, until it isn't. Michael walked away, mind restless, behind him. Reginald stayed seated, one hand resting on the edge of his bucket. The Typhoon gleamed under the floodlights, silent, obedient, unaware of how close it had come. Somewhere deep inside, a faint hiss continued, too small for sensors to notice. Reginald's head tilted, listening. He didn't move, not yet. The hiss grew louder the next day, barely a whisper. But to Reginald, it was a language. He knew that sound. He had heard it once before, 40 years and 2 funerals ago. Michael was already at the hangar when the alarm tripped. Pressure warning. Auxiliary tank 2. The same Typhoon. Same line. Same arrogance repeating itself. Technicians scrambled. Someone shouted about sensor interference. Someone else called for lockdown. But the smell in the air told Reginald more than their graphs ever would. He moved before anyone noticed. The limp in his right leg heavy but steady. Michael saw him and felt the instant pull between instinct and rule. For a moment, hesitation was louder than sense. Then he shouted, "Let him through!" The crowd parted. Confusion first, then obedience. Reginald knelt beneath the belly of the Typhoon, the hiss now sharp, urgent. Ryan appeared, eyes wide. "You again." "Old man, get back." Michael cut him off. "You want to live. You'll let him fix it." The mechanic froze. Reginald had already unclipped his small kit, each tool fitting his hand as if grown there. He slid under the jet, eyes tracing metal like a surgeon reading a heartbeat. There it was, a hairline split where pressure had gathered like a clenched fist. The pipe vibrated, angry and ready to burst. He shouted for clamps. None came, so he used his rag, folded twice, pressed it to the joint with the strength of remembered guilt. Michael crouched beside him, holding the wrench that would not turn. Together, they fought a machine that did not care who was right. Fuel spat once, a flash, a smell like electricity and memory. Then silence. The leak slowed. The gauge needle fell back to calm. For a moment, no one breathed. Reginald leaned against the wheel strut, chest rising slow. "That's it," he murmured, voice frayed. "That's the sound when it listens again." The commander arrived seconds later, demanding an explanation. Michael pointed at the rag, darkened and trembling in the exhaust wash. "That, sir," Is what stopped your hangar going up. Ryan said nothing. He looked at Reginald and saw, for the first time, not age, but endurance, something older than the base itself. They cleared the area, sealed the valve, filed the report, but paperwork could not capture the smell of near disaster. Michael followed Reginald outside, into the corridor where light fell hard and unforgiving. You saved them, Michael said quietly. Reginald shrugged. I only heard what no one else wanted to. He sat down, wiping his hands slow, eyes distant. Later that day, the commander called for him. Reginald entered the office without ceremony, toolbox still in hand. On the desk lay a printed photo, the one from the veterans segment. The commander tapped the edge of it. You were Chief Technician Wells, weren't you? Reginald nodded once. Harris is my wife's name. Made life quieter. The officer hesitated, searching for words that might bridge 40 years. You were blamed for hesitation. Reginald's tone stayed level. I was blamed for being early. A long pause filled the room, heavy with recognition. Then the commander said, quietly, Your clearance has been reinstated. Reginald inclined his head, as if the gesture cost him something. Outside, Michael waited. When he saw the old man's face, he already knew. What now? He asked. Reginald smiled faintly. Now I wash the jets because I want to, not because I must. They walked the line of aircraft together, engines silent, metal gleaming under white light. Every reflection held a fragment of their faces, one young, one lined, both marked. By the next week, a small plaque appeared beside the hangar door. It bore no rank, no medal, just words. Reginald Harris, the man who listened to the jets. Ryan passed by it every morning, sometimes touching the edge as if to check it was still there. Michael started his shifts earlier, always glancing toward the ramp before takeoff. And Reginald, though slower now, still arrived before dawn, cloth in hand. He moved along each wing the same way, patient, deliberate. He pressed his palm to the metal and waited for the whisper only he could hear. The whisper that said, We're ready. Old man, you can rest for now. One afternoon, Michael found the bucket alone again, the rag folded, the tools aligned, every surface clean. Reginald was gone, no farewell, no note, just absence shaped like gratitude. The next flight launched without fault. Engines thundered, wings cut through distance. Michael looked down at the empty corner of the hangar and smiled. Some heroes fly, some make sure others return. And some, like Reginald Harris, simply listen until the machines go quiet. Michael stayed until the hangar lights dimmed. The Typhoons stood in their lines, silent guardians of a sky that never slept. On the plaque, the letters caught the last shimmer of daylight. He reached out, touched the metal, and felt it warm beneath his hand, as if answering. Somewhere in that stillness, he heard it again, the faint, steady hum of a man's craft, echoing beyond the steel. It sounded like respect finally returned home. They never asked to be remembered, but their stories remember us. Here, we don't shout their names, we listen, because silence, sometimes, is where the bravest voices live. This is Quiet Heroes.